Welcome to On the Go, a podcast about life, leadership, and the Lord. Here are your hosts, J.C. Worley and David Waldroup.
Okay, we're back on the Go podcast all about life, leadership, and the Lord. This is Pastor JC. I'm David, and let's just get right to it.
We're really doing it.
Your mic is blocking your face. I can't even see you right now. I don't even know what you're doing. Fix your mic. I can't see your face. You have to fix that. I can't not.
Well, every time that we do an episode, you make fun of me about something, so I've decided to hide myself. Do you want to say something about my vest?
I just learned. I just looked at you and I couldn't see anything.
Here, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
This vest is custom made, by the way.
Well, now that we're on the subject, where'd you get it?
Well, I just told you it was custom made.
By who?
Costco.
Oh, yeah.
It's a guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Emperor Costco. And so that's that.
Congrats.
Is this better?
That is better. Now I see you. It was like you were an anonymous guest on my show. So we're talking about all of our leadership finest moments. We already did all of our failures. So today
I'm still in counseling over that.
Yes, we had a lot of failures. We did our 10 and 9 finest moments. Now we're going to do 3 today each. Our number 8, 7, and 6 finest moments. So I'll get us started here. Finest moments in leadership. And again, this is for anyone, whether you're leading at a church, nonprofit, a business, or leading a family. These are principles that are pretty general that you can use everywhere. And so I think for me, very practical getting started out. I think something that's always come pretty naturally to me and it's helped me in leadership is I've just always been organized. And that's something that you've been as well. I just everything has a place.
It does.
And I married a Latina and everything does have a place. It's just not in a place that makes sense with where I think the place should be. But also, I don't get a say in my house.
No, you don't.
So, because again, I married a Latina.
Maybe that's why you talk so much on this podcast.
I have a lot to say. I need help. Send help. No, it is, Esther has a system. Actually, I will tell you this.
I love how you're trying to choose your words.
I'm trying to choose my words. This is what happened. When we were, you know how it is, when you're engaged, you start out and you're saying
Tell me.
She would say just the sweetest thing. She'd be like, I'll do your laundry forever. And I was like, that sounds good. She did my laundry for the first week we got married. She did my laundry and I just didn't really love the way that the clothes were folded and which drawers she chose to put them in. And so when she was gone, I started reorganizing it, but she came back in and saw me.
Done.
And she has never offered to do that again because I have my own systems, right? Yeah. So I'm supposed to be talking about my finest moments, but it went right into a failure. Don't do that to your spouse or...
Let's talk about your marriage a little bit more. So.
That's a different podcast for sure. I love you, babe. I love you so much. Let's get back to leadership.
Okay, I love you too.
Yeah, not
Esther.
her. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, when you're in leadership, you need to be organized, and you guys know this. I think you know that you're supposed to be. It just comes more naturally to others, but let me just go ahead and say this. If you are in a leadership position of any kind and your calendar is not on your phone, you are failing right now. Now, you might not think you're failing yourself, but you're probably failing other people because you're showing up late to meetings or you're forgetting the meetings altogether or you're double booking yourself. There's a lot that can go wrong. You need to get organized. There's a lot of things we could talk about. But it's not only your calendar, it's even communication systems for the organization. You've got to establish, we use Basecamp, but there's tons. People use Microsoft Teams, Slack. There's all kinds of softwares out there. You need to have a system of communication, a system of recording and just looking at your calendar. Everything's got to be systemized. You cannot I think my advice here would be, if it's only living in your head, you're losing. You're losing your team, you're losing your people, and you're putting a lid on the organization. If it's not written out clearly somewhere, you're missing it. So I know it seems uptight, but if you want to take your organization further, faster, everything's got to have a name, it's got to have a place, it's got to have a strategy. So get it out of your head, get it on paper or into a software, and get organized. So that's something that's helped me in the past.
I think a lot of leaders waste a lot of time because they're not organized.
True.
I honestly, I think that the lack of organization it's actually sadly kind of an epidemic in leadership.
Yeah.
And they don't realize how much time that they are wasting, how many people they're letting down,
Right.
how much stress is added because of the lack of organization. And you can spend money to be organized,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of, like you talked about, apps or different things, but it doesn't cost much to be organized.
It doesn't.
And if you're not naturally organized, don't let that be an excuse as to you not getting organized.
Right.
Because again, you can learn a few different things and techniques to help you get organized. And I think it will reduce the stress off of your life, and it will certainly reduce the stress off of your family. This applies to that.
Your family, your team,
et cetera. So and I think similarly, as we kind of count down, one of my finer moments in leadership is that I've always tried to be responsive and responsible.
Yeah, that's your number 8.
That's my number 8. I mean, and those are two different things. So I'll talk about the responsive piece first, and then the responsible piece. It's just a pet peeve of mine whenever I'm trying to connect with somebody about something and they don't respond.
Right.
Like they're not responsive. And it's a great challenge as a leader to be responsive, because as the organization or whatever you're leading grows, the business, the company, the church, more people, want from you and demand of you. And, and now there's so many different channels of communication, whether it's, text message, phone call, email, social media.
Sure.
So that can be very overwhelming. But anyway, whenever I'm trying to reach someone for something and they don't respond, it's just a pet peeve.
Yeah.
And so obviously I've gotten better over the years at this, but I've always tried to be responsive.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is that, most people, there was this old rule of thumb where if you could get back with somebody in 24 hours, that was the goal. But, nowadays with just AI in itself, if you're emailing a company or, chatting with a company, I mean, they're responding instantly.
Yeah.
And so for, a business leader or a pastor that maybe you don't have that kind of technology set up, and really it may not benefit what you're trying to accomplish in the long run, people can get frustrated if you're not responding to them. So even if you're on vacation, just a simple auto response in your email, just say, hey, I'm on vacation as soon as I get back. Or, I've got some copy and paste social media responses because my inbox on social media gets wild.
Flooded,
But I've made myself, available online. I try not to ignore those individuals. So even if it's, hey, if you could email my assistant, we'll be sure to respond there. So to redirect them to the proper area of communication. But man, I've emailed potential guest speakers 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I'm still waiting to hear from them.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
So anyway, I think depending on the area of leadership for you, being responsive is just like a really big deal. My wife arrived at home.
Yeah, and you better respond.
It's just like 360.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, but she made it. So praise the Lord.
That is good. So the responsiveness.
The other responsiveness, and then the responsible piece is, and you could probably define that in a variety of ways, including being organized. I think that's a part of being responsible. But I just think I want to take it from the angle of I've tried to be a man of my word.
Yeah.
I've tried to be responsible with, I told you I was going to do this. I want to be responsible enough to do that very thing. Or if I'm going to miss the target on that, I want to be responsible enough to own it and say, hey, I said that I was going to be able to do that. I'm actually not going to be able to do that.
Right.
And there is a sense of responsibility to taking ownership of hitting the target or missing the target. And I don't want to over spiritualize this, but I believe that when you steward your responsiveness and your responsibility, God is pleased with that.
Sure.
And more opportunities in a variety of ways they open up. I think it builds great credibility. I think people can trust their leader.
Yeah.
Even if it is a redirect in your responsiveness, or even if it is owning something that you said you were going to do, I think people appreciate that instead of you playing hide and seek or trying to avoid them because you don't want to be responsible or you don't want to respond. It's just something, it's kind of a core conviction of mine. okay, I want to be responsive. I want to be responsible. And I'm proud to say that for the most part, I'm not batting 1,000.
Sure.
But for the most part, I feel like I can kind of check that as that's who we are and it's what we do.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's very important. And I would agree. You've done both those things. You've modeled those well.
I think you got business owners out there, and I'm not like pointing the finger, although I'm kind of pointing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not responding to your customers,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
No, you got
right?
to. Yeah, you got an expiration date on your organization, or at least a lid on where it's going to go.
Exactly.
Because you got to respond to people. Let's keep moving here. For me, number 7. Before I say what the finest moment is, your failures can lead you to your finest moments.
No doubt.
Right, and that's actually where, even on my top 10, I could have put them on my failures list because I probably didn't start out this way, but. Your failures can lead to a finest moment if you do, and this is what I learned very early on in leadership, is I was willing to take ownership when I failed. So I took a lot of ownership because I failed a lot early on, and I learned from it. I like what one of our team members says all the time, just make a new mistake, right? So it's not making the same mistake over and over again. At some point, you do got to quit making that same mistake.
Exactly.
But sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so for me, I think what really helped me in leadership was whenever I would miss it, I refused to try to like justify why I missed it. I refused to say like all the finger pointing and all the things. I was like, man, I missed it. You know, I can tell you what was in my head when I missed it, but I just missed it. And I can tell the people I led, like, guys, no, that's on me. Like, I didn't make it clear. To be honest, I think I've embraced it so much, even to a fault, I think, and you and I have talked about some recent situations where probably I've taken too much ownership when really the people under me probably should have taken more ownership than they did.
Right.
But I want to model to the people I lead that I'm willing to own it when I miss it. Like if I miss it, I'm going to look at every situation when someone, even if it's not me that fails, even if it's a staff member that fails, I look at myself and I say, okay, if I would have been more clear, they probably wouldn't have failed. Or if I would have been a little bit more bold when I talked to them about the thing, then they wouldn't have done it again. So I'm always willing to, I don't say always, but I feel like I've done a good job of being willing to say, man, that's on me. And so to the leader out there, that if you're afraid of taking ownership because you don't want to lose credibility, let me flip that on its head. I think the less ownership you take, the less credibility you have with the people you're leading. And so maybe you don't take a hit from the people very distant from you in the organization, but the people that you directly lead and impact, when you miss it and you don't take ownership, you've lost credibility with them. When they're like, really? Like, we all know that was you. Like, we all know you're the one that did that. If you're not willing to acknowledge that, your team is not going to trust you as much. And so I've never wanted, I might have even had failures where maybe the failure made me lose credibility, but I feel like I gained some of that back by saying, guys, I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah. I'm going to do better. Here's what I'm going to put in place to do better next time. So yeah, taking ownership is a big one for me.
I actually think it's one of my favorite leadership characteristics that you possess. You know, as you were talking, typically I tune you out, but this time, this time I was listening.
Good.
No, but as you were talking, I was just thinking about, you know, a variety of conversations we've had over the years, and you've not taken ownership of everything because not everything has been on you.
Right.
But you've never pointed the finger
right
in a direction away from you when you knew.
Yeah.
So you're not sitting in my office saying it's always me and because that's not healthy leadership.
No, that's not true.
But anytime that it has been you, for whatever reason, you have always owned that.
Right.
And I love that about you. And I think too, for me, you know, because obviously I've got 2 kids that are older than Levi.
Sure.
Just to encourage you as a parent, even in parenting, that's such a great parenting win.
Oh yeah.
I think because you talked about how your failures can actually be your wins.
Absolutely.
Like for me, some of my greatest wins as a dad were because of my failures.
Yeah.
And I had to come back and say to my son, I own that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I overreacted, or I responded emotionally, or I shouldn't have. And man, like I hope, you know, that my kids can appreciate Dad's not just going to do what he did, and then he's going to come back and own it.
Yeah.
You know, and because we all miss the mark, man. We miss the
do.
mark as pastors, as husbands, as leaders, in any role, any hat that you wear, you're going to miss the mark. You just got to take ownership.
I'll tell you, because you're spot on. Last thing I'll say about it, then I'll turn it back to you, is not only is it just a good thing to do, but what happens is, as the leader, when I start taking ownership of my part, I think the people I lead feel safer to take the ownership of theirs, you know, where it's like, okay, well, if you're going to own that, like, this was my piece in this too. So I think, again, everyone starts to do it. You lead by example. So it just, the temperature starts to go down, right? Failure can create pressure and the temperature rises. But when you take ownership, you kind of bring that pressure back down. You say, guys, okay, I'm going to take the heat for this. Let that pressure live in me. I'm going to fix it. And I think it helps. So
yeah, well, and the truth is, everything rises and falls on leadership. And there are times that as a leader, I mean, you've got to eat crow. You've got to take ownership even when it necessarily wasn't you. And, and that's hard, but you do that really well.
Thanks.
Number 7.
All
right. I honestly, I'm really proud of this one. And it's not so much because of me, but those that God has put in my life. I think I've done a really good job of submitting to the wisdom of those before me, and also submitting to the authority of those above me.
Yeah.
And 2 specific kind of conversations here that I want to have, but I'm going to start with this. John Donne's Meditation 17. No man is an island entirely unto himself. Each man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. There's an old visual of a turtle sitting on a fence post, you know, and you've probably seen that picture.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but you know, you see this turtle sitting on top of a fence post. How did they get there?
Right.
Somebody put them there.
Right.
And the point is that with John Donne's meditation, with the silly picture of a turtle on a fence post, nobody gets to where they are by themselves.
For sure.
We're always standing on the shoulders of somebody else. And, you know, in my life specifically, God has given me a great wise man in my father-in-law.
Yeah.
That now has 40 years of more than 40 years, but just 40 years here of pastoral ministry, who I can submit to his wisdom. And I think, and again, I'm a pastor, others that are listening may not necessarily wear the hat of a shepherd, but again, whatever leadership role you're in, I think we got a lot of leaders that are afraid to ask for advice or counsel.
Yeah.
And they run from the opportunity to get wise counsel from those that have gone before them, that have had successes and moments of learning that could help us to either lean into what needs to be done or to avoid what they did,
right,
so that we don't hit the same pitfall. And I don't know, David, I've never been, I think I can say this with full confidence. I've never been afraid to pick up the phone and call my father-in-law.
Yeah, that's good.
And say, like, I've got this situation, you know, like, or I've got these situations.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that I always have to take his advice exactly, but he's been there before. I mean, there's been very few times, man, where I've asked him advice on something that he hasn't walked a similar, you know, journey in some capacity. And so again, like, I've tried to do a really good job of submitting to his wisdom and the wisdom of others that have gone before me, and they've been where I've not yet been, or they've led at a level that I've not yet led. And so I want to lean into that. And then the authority piece, you know, man, I mean, I've just always tried to be very submissive to authority in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and we're a part of a denomination. I'm not bashing churches that don't have a denominational covering, but I believe in the authority and the accountability that comes with the covering that we're given. And I've always tried to honor that authority. Man, and I know, depending on when you watch this may not be, you know, relevant to this particular thought, but just yesterday, with a couple of situations that we're walking through, just yesterday, I had to make a phone call to someone that is in a position of authority over me denominationally. We spent 20 minutes on the phone unpacking. I need help.
Yeah.
I need help. But not only do I need help, but if I don't do this well, what are the ripple effects on my ministry and the brand? And again, we talked about that. I know it was last season, but it's not about a brand, but you get it.
No, for
but
sure.
about the identity of Go Church.
Yeah.
So, but the only way that I could come to the conclusions, plural, because there were multiple scenarios, was by submitting to the authority that's above me.
That's good.
And saying, I need help.
Yeah.
And I don't know, sometimes I guess earlier in my leadership in life, like I pretended to seek that out and then just, I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah.
But man, like the older I get, the more I want to lean into those relationships and not pull away from those relationships, and so again, depending on what you're leading and doing, I think there are a few people that you have to have in your life. You have to have people that have already done what you're trying to do.
Yep.
You have to have people beside you that are doing what you're doing. And you have to have people, and this is not, don't hear what I'm not saying, but below you, not in terms of your authority over them necessarily, but their experience that they're trying to come up. And if you can lean into those relationships, I think that you have a great formula for long-term successful leadership in life.
Yeah, that is good.
Does that make sense at all?
No, it definitely does. One of the quotes that I love that I heard before is, "You are unique, but your situation is not." And so when you have mentors like your father-in-law and like our denominational leadership that's in place, what's going on in your head when you're faced with that leadership crisis that you're in is, you can think, there's nobody knows what this is like. Nobody knows what this feels like. I've got to just make a decision. But that's not really true. You are unique, but your situation's not. There's a really good chance that someone that's been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years
exactly
has probably been through it before and can speak into it. And so, yeah, having those mentors. I'll come back later on in a later episode and talk about that a little bit more and tease it out a little bit more.
Well, just really fast before you move on to the next thought. Pastors, there are a lot of older senior pastors now that have retired or in the place of retiring. I would say that they would be honored at the opportunity if you don't have somebody to be a phone call.
For sure.
Business leaders, I am sure that there is someone along the way that you could have relationship with to pitch ideas or challenges by.
No doubt.
Husbands, wives, like the list is endless, but you've got to be willing to go find those relationships. Over time, they may become very organic.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you may have to not force the relationship, but you have to schedule a time and, connect with the person. But we all need those that have wisdom, and you do need some accountability and authority so that you can be submissive to that.
Agreed.
And the Lord will honor it. So
I agree. Okay. My last one for today, number 6, finest moment is I made a lot of mistakes in life. I failed many times, as has so many people. But I think one thing that has helped me is that my number 6, I was willing to learn from their failures. I didn't have to make those mistakes. I chose not to make their mistakes because you can learn from your failures, but I wanted to learn from somebody else's. Because why would I want to put myself in harm's way by doing the things that they did? So whether that was just personal convictions and just sins that I saw people fall into, or leadership mistakes and you probably did the same thing where it's like, okay, I could learn what to do. And you talked about more from a mentorship standpoint of, well, here's what they did or they recommended. But I also learned, okay, here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be this kind of leader. I'm not going to do this to my team. And so, I just feel like that was something that really saved me from so much pain. We all go through leadership pain and we're aware of it. But the unfortunate thing is you can never be aware of the pain that you never had. Does that make sense? Like you don't know all of the just guardrails that you bumped off of and that kept you from harm's way because you were willing to just say, no, that was someone else's failure. That's not going to be mine. I'm not going to lose my ministry. I'm not going to lose my family. I'm not going to misappropriate funds. I'm not going to do those. I'm not going to do all that. I've seen them fail, and that's enough failure for all of us. So I think I learned that early on.
I love it. I love it so much. And I also love the fact that you stayed so committed to being focused.
I was focused.
Right now.
I was focused.
There was a lot that was happening.
I learned a lot from people's failures, and you can fail to pay attention when there's a lot going on. But I did it.
You did it.
I got my point out there. I hope everyone's still listening. When I watch this on playback, I'm going to be like, wow, geez.
We lost them at disorders.
Yeah, my disorders.
And we could do a whole episode just on your disorders. That would be fun. All right, last one. And I'll actually do this one fairly quick, but that doesn't minimize the importance of it. I think I've done a really good job of remembering why I started.
Yeah.
Instead of just quitting when I wanted to.
That's good, man.
You know, and man, I'll be honest with you. There's been quite a few days that I thought I probably could do something else.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't mean because I don't love what I do.
For sure.
I'll actually talk a little bit about that in the next episode. You know, but man, just what we do is hard.
It's hard.
You know, there's a lot of weight, a lot of pressure. And I'm sure that for whatever those that are listening do for work, for their profession, for their career, it's hard. But man, now, David, I mean, I'm 20, almost 25 years in on a job. I was thinking about then this isn't a job, it's a calling, but a lot of people don't work in their profession for 25 years.
Yeah.
You know, and the only way that I've gotten there is whenever I've felt like throwing in the towel or writing the resignation, I've just closed my eyes and remember why I started. God called me to do this.
Good.
You know, on my laptop, I've got a picture of the Orange Hill Cemetery in Tampa, Florida, where God saved me.
Yeah.
And on my really hard days, those difficult days where I feel like, man, am I making a difference? Or which Mondays can be very heavy, you know, Sunday evenings are hard too, because I'll get home and start to second guess what I preached. And you preached a lot of sermons. You know how that goes. You're thinking, man, that was the worst sermon I've ever preached. And, you know, or I wake up Monday and I feel the spiritual warfare. But I'll go on my laptop. I'll pull up that picture of the Orange Hill Cemetery in Tampa, or I'll close my eyes and I'll go back to the place, the day, and the time of when God called me. And that puts wind in my sails.
Yeah.
And so, and then I pray every morning. I pray every morning, you know, that God would just remind me of the why.
Yeah.
You know, so that I stay encouraged and stay focused and stay committed. I pray every day that God gives me the energy and the passion and the stamina to keep my hands on the plow. Yeah. You know, because I want to keep going. You know, and there's been some real, and you've been a part of the journey for a long time now, man. Sure. We've had some really high highs, but we've also had some really low lows.
For sure.
You know, and in those low, you don't really want to quit when you're on the high part of the mountain.
Of course not.
You know, but when you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and there's been a few days where I thought, okay, like maybe this is it. But again, I just remember why I started. God called me to do this. I didn't call me to do this.
That's good.
And I certainly didn't equip myself to do this. The Holy Spirit has certainly gifted you, gifted me, anointed you, anointed me. And so when I think about that, I just say, you know what? This is what I say to my kids. As Worleys, we don't make long-term decisions based off of short-term emotions.
Right. It's good.
You know, or here's another way of saying it. We don't make long-term decisions based off of short-term seasons.
Right.
And so you may be listening as a business owner or, you know, a leader of your company, and you're in a weird season. Don't make a long-term decision right now because of that. Only quit if God said quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, they quit prematurely.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't want to quit in the dip.
Yeah. That's good.
You know what I mean? Like, I hope that whenever the Lord calls me home, or says your time at this is done, I hope it's at the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so again, if you're feeling discouraged, just hang in there, man. Just close your eyes, go back to God's calling on your life, remember your why. And I do think that'll be like fresh wind in your sails that will motivate you through some difficult seasons, because there are difficult seasons.
There are. So. There are. I want to expound on what you said, because I think that this is important for our listeners out there. One, you referenced it really quick, is don't quit unless God's calling you to quit. I will say this. Let me give the other side of that coin. For some, let me just speak really bluntly to our listeners out there. If you're in leadership, for some of you, it's because your remedy to wanting to quit was remembering your why. But for some of you, the leadership pain you're going through is actually revealing that you don't have a good why. You were in it for the wrong reasons. You've had the wrong motives. And if you're being really honest with yourself, you probably should quit. When you start, and listen, it's only if your motives are not pure to begin with.
Yeah.
So if you have impure motives, you should quit. Like, I will tell people that, because you're going to hurt somebody, including yourself. And so don't have impure motives. Now, to those that do have those pure motives, however deep I could take this, you reference that valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
It's not the valley. We got things falling everywhere. It's the valley of the shadow of death. It's not the valley of death. And so what I mean is there's I don't want to make it too grim, but you can either get hit by a truck or you can get hit by the shadow of a truck. Okay, getting hit by a truck would really do some damage, right? Getting hit by the shadow of a truck doesn't really do anything. It just makes it a little bit darker for that moment.
A little scary.
And so for those of you in leadership, that shadow of death, it's not real death, right? Because at the end of the day, your job matters. And for some of us, it can impact people's eternity. However, the ultimate death was delivered to Christ. It's not coming to you. Jesus went through the valley of death so that we could just go through the valley of the shadow of death, right? So just know that don't quit on your organization and just know it's a shadow. It's not the real thing. And especially, and listen, for those of you that have thought about ending it all and ending your life because of things that, your finances plummeted, you tanked the organization. Maybe you failed. We talk lightly about our failures, but maybe you really failed and a lot of people got hurt. Listen, your life is way too valuable.
Amen.
It's a shadow of death. God can redeem that failure. You don't need to end it all. Your life matters too much. And so I know that's a deep place to end a podcast on leadership, but I don't want anyone to quit in the dip. I don't want anyone to quit in the valley of the shadow of death. It's just a shadow. Now, it might reveal impure motives, and if that's the case, you should quit and find yourself in a place where you can operate from a pure place, but your life matters. What you do matters. And so don't quit. Okay? And God will lead you there.
That's a fantastic word. And your life matters more than the organization that you lead.
That's big.
And your life matters more than the, turbulence of the economy.
Yeah.
We see it all the time when the stock market tanks. You've got top executives jumping out of buildings, man.
I watched the documentary about like Bernie Madoff and all his scams from those early 2000s, and that happened. I mean, just guys that they lost people. They managed their funds and they were invested in a Ponzi scheme unknowingly, and they lost people their life savings, which is a heavy weight. I can't imagine. I mean, billions of dollars gone, and they chose to end it all. And anyways, I cut you off, but
that's okay.
Your life matters. It's worth more than those billions of dollars. I know it's a hard failure, but God can redeem that. So I think that's just important for our listeners to know.
Well, we did it.
We did it. Hopefully, whatever was happening with our cameras, that whole show is getting fine and fixed. Shout out to our production team. They do a great job. And hey, thanks for tuning in. We will see you guys next time. We're going to be in our number 5, 4, and 3 Leadership Finest Moments. We'll see you then. God bless you guys.